oh my God, like, what am I going to do? This is so bad. AAA is not coming for 2.5 hours. Like, what is happening? The call kind of gets sent out to all the staff who are hanging out at the hangar, just having some chicken wings, having a beer or whatnot. Just like, this is great. Woohoo, DMA is over.
All of us saying, where the heck is Justy? Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of the BandWagon podcast for the week of August 26th, 2024. On this edition of the program, news and notes from the band world, including lots of new band directors, a seasonal public service announcement, rescuing victory from the jaws of defeat, and I have a conversation that makes sociology fun. I'm your host, Rob Hammerton. Hello, dear listener. Okay, now that we're into the 20s of August, so to speak, it really is the beginning of a new school year. It has been that for some time for my friends and colleagues in the West and Midwest, but out here on the Eastern Seaboard, we're used to finishing up in mid-June and reconvening in late August. Heck, when I was a kid here in Massachusetts, we didn't start classes back up until the week after Labor Day. Don't know whatever happened to that, but it was nice. Anywho, this episode contains a lot of news and notes about issues of restarting and rebooting. At this time of year, I always look at things with a fresh perspective. As an educator, I kind of had to. As a church choir director, it's the end of a summer choir hiatus, and it's always good to get back in the room. And as a podcast person, I've had occasion, even while writing and recording and editing the past few episodes, to look back, reassess, and try to imagine where it all goes from here. And so, later in the episode, I will offer up something of an apology and an intention for the future as it relates to the subject matter of the BandWagon podcast. Intrigued? In the old days of my online blog, I would have said, read on. I think the equivalent must be, thank you for continuing to listen. Which I do. Thank you. As always. So, feet flat on the floor, and away we go. Let's play the first strain. In this episode's first strain, news and notes from the band world. Dateline, Fresno, California. Zoe Cohen has been named Director of Instrumental Music at Clovis West High School. She will lead the Clovis West Marching Band and Wind Bands. The Nevada City, California native earned her undergraduate music education degree from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where she studied wind band conducting under Dr. Lindsay Bronincant, and for 4 years was the drum major of the Minuteman Marching Band. She also served as conducting intern for the Smith College Wind Ensemble. Dateline, Ewing Township, New Jersey. Michael Pettis has been named concert band conductor at the College of New Jersey. Pettis currently is director of bands and marching band director at Neshaminy High School in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and is also associate director of the Doylestown Symphonic Winds. This summer, he was one of the recipients of the Bluecoats Fellowship. Pettis earned his undergraduate music theory and composition degree from Westchester University, where he was also drum major of the incomparable Golden Ram Marching Band for 2 years. He earned a master's degree in tuba performance at Rutgers University and is pursuing a master's degree in music education from Temple University, from which he received his teaching certificate. For 5 years, Pettis also served as assistant conductor and general manager of the Philadelphia Wind Symphony. Dateline, Clarion, Pennsylvania. Lisa Hummel has been named director of the Clarion University Golden Eagles Marching Band. She earned her music education bachelor's degree from Clarion University and her music education master's degree from Penn State. She is a past Pennsylvania Music Education Association Citation of Excellence Award recipient. Hummel had retired at the end of this past school year after spending 33 years as director of bands for Union School District in Reimersburg, Pennsylvania. There, she conducted the elementary band, 7th and 8th grade band, senior high concert band, marching band, and various small ensembles, as well as teaching instrumental lessons for 4th through 12th grade students. Hummel said, quote, "Although I had intended to remain retired, the Clarion University bands are near and dear to my heart, and I just could not say no to this new opportunity. I had worked in the band office for 4 years as a student, and I was very involved in the music program. Accepting the band director position just felt right." And that's news and notes from the band world for this week. If you have a news item you think should be included in this segment, send me a link via email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. On the other side of this quick break, something of a continuation of this first strain. Hope you'll stay with me to find out what that's all about. Okay, let's pick it up at the second strain. In this week's second strain, another news item about the hiring of a new school band director, but this one would appear to be in a league of its own. Credit to the writing and reporting of Melanie Burney at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Bill Woodward has been named marching band director at Collingswood, New Jersey High School. Collingswood Superintendent of Schools Fred McDowell made the announcement last week at the end of a fraught few weeks that followed the sudden death of the high school's band director and the sudden resignation of his replacement. In a statement, the school district said that Woodward has more than 4 decades of music composing and arranging experience with a strong background in marching music and arts and would be a natural fit as the new band director. Most recently, he was the marching band director at Delsea Regional High School in Gloucester County, New Jersey, and had worked in several districts across the region. After longtime Panther marching band director Joe Lurch died unexpectedly of acute liver failure brought on by suspected food poisoning in April 2023, district music teacher Lori Ludwig stepped in to temporarily cover the extracurricular marching ensemble. In mid-July, a day after learning she would have the same workload for the forthcoming school year as in the previous one, Ludwig informed band members and Booster Club parents that she had to step down to lighten that workload, which included teaching music classes at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Concerned students, parents, and supporters launched a petition drive and made an emotional appeal during a school board meeting to save the marching program. They asked the district to hire another music teacher to take over some of Ludwig's classroom responsibilities while she stayed on as high school marching band director. During the school board meeting, one Collingswood band parent said, quote, "She may have stepped down, but there was nothing voluntary about it. It is all of you who should be apologizing to her." Another Collingswood resident said, quote, "I'm mad as hell about what is being done to our music department. These kids are more than a head count. This is your job to figure out, and you need to do better." After the meeting, one band member told the Philadelphia Inquirer, "We don't want anyone else stepping in. We want Mrs. Ludwig. We love and want her to be able to be with us." Following the hiring of the new marching band director, Anne Marie Latini, president of the Collingswood High School Marching Band Boosters, said that the school district still needs to address serious music department funding issues. A special election will be held next month on a bond referendum that would allow the district to purchase and renovate a Catholic school building, add new elementary school classrooms, and refurbish athletic fields. Commenting on the new hiring, Latini said, quote, "We've addressed the problem, for now." Although the band is behind schedule because of the scramble to fill the director position, Woodward reassured the band that it will have a full season and participate in competitions, according to color guard instructor Haley Sheeroff, who said, quote, "We are in crunch time. Everyone has to be on top of it. It is going to be very much an underdog situation." Boy, ain't that always the truth somehow? And with that, we'll observe a brief fermata, and after that, I've got a conversation for you that I think you will enjoy. Hope you'll stick around. Okay, let's change keys and get into the trio section. This week in the trio section, I am pleased to be joined by a gentleman whose resume reads both band-related and not. He is one of those college drum major types who wasn't a music major, and this particular journalism major thinks that's A-okay. His actual academic major might well make him more qualified to take that particular job on, depending on the situation. Welcome to the program, Justus Carney. Justy.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's really awesome to be here.
Thanks for coming on and doing this. I tried not to do too many spoilers in that little open, but we got chatting earlier in the summer standing out on a field, and our conversation was just enough to pique my interest and not nearly enough to satisfy my curiosity. And what better place to rectify that in this day and age, I figure, than a podcast.
Yes, sir.
And there are topics that I'm sure we'll get to where we're coming at it from two very distinct life experience places, and in no way is my perspective the be-all, end-all just because you're the young feller. But first, we'll begin with my standard kickoff questions by way of introduction. First, I always ask people, what's your primary instrument?
So I actually have two primary instruments. I started off with percussion in middle school, and I also am a proud member of Team Hands since junior year of high school.
How did you get into playing percussion?
So I started middle school band in 5th grade after getting dragged to instrument night like so many other young future musicians do. But it was a good thing. Percussion was fun, and I liked band enough. But I don't know, I wasn't really interested in doing it in high school. But at the insistence of many wise adults in my life, like my middle school director, Mrs. Julianne Thornell, my future high school directors, Mr. Matt Harden and Mr. Charlie Morse, my private lesson teacher, and the South Shore Conservatory's very own Eddie Spaghetti Sorrentino, and especially my parents, James and Jenny, I ended up signing my life away into doing marching band for just 1 year, and that's it. And look how that turned out.
That happens.
Yep.
So is there a laundry list of bands that you've been active with in your life, whether it's playing or only recently have I heard the term Team Hands, and I wish that it had existed before.
Yes, kind of, sort of. I mean, I like to think that I just put myself out there musically, and if an opportunity presents itself, I just go for it. So yeah, I obviously started in the Hanover schools, band programs, middle and high school, doing the marching band, then concert band in the fall, but also ended up doing a small little wind ensemble there as that kind of created itself. And then we also had a percussion ensemble, a couple of winter concerts. I actually ended up conducting one of those percussion pieces, and I came across the video recently and made sure that it was deleted promptly. My conducting has come a long way since then.
Everybody gets to start somewhere.
Yes, indeed. This is true. This is true. But yeah, so then I got to UConn, which, we'll get into later, and just, threw myself into the marching band. But also was fortunate enough to do the pep band there, did some winter drumline for a couple years. And then also played in a bunch of different symphonic ensembles. So I helped out in the percussion section, in the concert band this past semester. But then I also was able to play in both the symphonic band and wind ensembles at different points. So yeah, and then actually can't forget, in high school I played in a band. It's called Friday Life. We've been pretty inactive recently, but that's something that's just on my resume. And if you go on all streaming services and type in Friday Life, it'll pop up, and you'll get to hear like very early Justy drumming and trying to learn how to play in a rock band. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's what links in show notes are for.
Indeed.
As a person in the UConn pep band, I am compelled to ask, were you adjacent to any national championships?
Yes, and this is the question I always get. So me personally, no, because I did it so intensely in the fall, like just being active with the marching band, and they're somewhat separate entities, but it's really all the same people. I generally would use the spring to kind of just like take a step back, let other people kind of step up and lead and learn things and be active and go on those trips. And really just because, yeah, I needed to hit the books after the fall, because I kind of put all my eggs in the marching band basket during that time frame. So, it's important to realize when to kind of step back and reprioritize other things in your life.
So now that you are graduated from UConn, do you currently have a band-related role?
Yes, I do. So I am currently the interim bass drum tech for the UConn drum line. I am fortunate enough to be passing it along to my good friend and fellow alum of the program, AJ Newman. We actually are just coming off of our last day of preseason. It was yesterday. And so, yeah, getting the opportunity to kind of work with him and kind of help transition him into the role has been really awesome. So, yeah, that's what I do.
So again, at DMA this summer, as we stood out there on the field, prepared for the next thing to happen, I'm having a conversation with a guy who owns a BA in psychology. See, I do my homework. I read this stuff. And you were talking about things like viewing leadership issues through a sociological lens. My sister was an education major with a sort of side focus on sociology as she did that. So I've heard just enough about that sort of perspective to know how little I know about it really. So what are we dealing with if our thesis title is A Sociological Approach to Band Leadership?
So I think really just what I mean by that is just knowing your people and understanding who you're working for, what makes them tick, and kind of what they want out of the program. Those who know me, yes, I have my degree, but I'm not the most like super high level, like heady academic type. So I really try to just like condense this stuff down into kind of a leadership philosophy that's very easy to follow, and just using simple like guiding principles and kind of understanding basic concepts just about human interaction and how people do their thing and why they do their thing. And yeah, really just kind of translating that to everyday life and just trying to impact the lives of other people positively.
Many years ago, the first time I heard Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser talk to a DMA group, he said something which at the time, it kind of snapped my head back a little bit. And at the same time, I understood exactly what he was talking about. And he said, in no way should 16 and 17-year-old people be put in charge of other 16 and 17-year-old people. And he said, I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that in that particular time of life, we're still figuring things out, and the brain really doesn't fully develop until you're, 24 or 25 years old or something along those lines. Peer leadership is going to be a challenge no matter what the age bracket. And I've met people who understood some pretty high-level ideas of how to lead others at a much earlier age than the average schedule of brain development might suggest. And I've also experienced people who make it all the way into their 70s and 80s who haven't figured that out yet. So in a way, we could rule out youth versus older age as a determining factor. Are there particular bullet-pointed guiding principles that you are thinking in terms of?
Yeah, so I like to think that there's a variety of different things that I learned over kind of my time in the throes of student, peer leadership. So I guess my first point was just be involved, like get involved with whatever it is that you're doing. Something that we talk about at Drum Major Academy is kind of being in the center of the circle. And there's a tradition we have with, we will host a march off at the end of the night, and the winner becomes encircled by the rest of the camp, and we cheer for them, and it's great. And there's a really awesome analogy where, when you're right in the middle of the circle, that's where all the energy is. Everybody's screaming, jumping, all that sort of stuff. And actually, as an impact, I was really able to see this fully, looking outside in on the circle. You can see as it kind of comes out, the energy, not that it like dies, but it kind of fades. And the people that are right on the outside of the circle, they're not as engaged as the people that are in the center of the circle. And that's not their fault. It's just a product of how the circle is constructed, right? Like there's a mass of this energy in the middle, as energy does, as it expands outwards, it, kind of fades. And really just doing your best to kind of be at the center of everything when you can manage it. Obviously you need to be able to take care of yourself and recognize like, hey, this is maybe too much for me, and maybe I'm putting too much into this certain endeavor or whatnot. But yeah, just when you can manage it, just throw yourself in there and just be at the center of the circle, because that's where the real life experiences are, and that's where the friends are to be made. And from my perspective, it's not a decision that you'll ever regret, just throwing yourself out there. Additionally, I think it's important to be someone that others can look up to. Something that just kind of makes my year whenever it happens, makes my life, honestly, is, when I was in either the impact role at Drum Major Academy or at exhibitions or football games or whatnot. It's just when people would pull me aside one-to-one and just say, hey, thank you for what you do. I see you. I appreciate you. Parents at football games, my son, that. This is great. He looks up to you, all that kind of stuff. He wants to do what you do. The students at DMA just kind of thanking me for being somebody that they can look up to. And, it's funny. Something that I strive to do is not take things so seriously, as much as I'm here like expounding and giving advice and stuff. That's definitely something that I know I struggle with sometimes, is just being like a little too serious and just like, oh, it needs to get done this way. Like, it's like, no, we got to remember that this is just band. And so, yeah, there was a student that came up this year, and she just said, hey, I want to thank you for showing me that it's like okay to be silly, and that you can have fun and dance around, and you don't always have to be the super strict pillar of the community kind of thing. Like, you have to be able to relate to people and show them that it's okay to have fun and be silly sometimes. That struck me.
It's feedback like that where somebody confirms that they looked up to you, that they saw you as a role model, that does stick in your head the idea that, okay, people are watching all the time. And so therefore, all the time I have to be on my game. But also, I've had conversations with people who were DMA students and are now on the staff about a thing that was very clear to them at the time they were students, which was they watched how the staff conducted themselves and thought, here were a bunch of people who were clearly having a good time. They were enjoying each other's company as well. And yes, there was a little tiny bit of of staff silliness going on out there. And they looked at that as, ooh, I would love to be a part of that, because not only are they getting the work done, but they're getting it done in a way that clearly they're enjoying themselves. And it's a balance, but it's a neat balance to be able to strike.
Yep.
Anyway, bullet points. What else you got?
And I guess some other things too. I mean, you know this all too well. Be on time. To be early is to be on time. On time is late. Late is unacceptable, because you can't do your job if you're not there.
It sounds like the most obvious thing in the world to say, but it's much harder to get other people to be on time if you're not yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's like, how can I be rolling up in my car 15 minutes later, like, guys, what the heck? We haven't started rehearsal yet. Yeah. It's like, well, you're late too.
And as a teacher, wherever it was, but particularly a public school music teacher, I was always the fellow who got to school before anybody else. But I was the kind of person, I needed to get my head together before I saw students. And so it's a role model sort of thing. But for me, very selfishly, it was a case of, if I am on time, I am not prepared.
Yeah, no, I relate to that 100%. 100%. You gotta take care of yourself and spend time getting your mind right before you endeavor in such a thing as leadership, because it's, you have the chance to change people's lives for better or for worse. It's not an unserious thing. I guess one more really big lesson that I learned that I'd like to share is, let your friends help you. I originally kind of coming into UConn was kind of forging my own path, and coming from Massachusetts, like, I want to learn this band and become a leader and do this myself. And it's not that I didn't accept help from other people, and there weren't plenty of people that kind of mentored me and brought me under their wing. It's just kind of a thing where I had trouble accepting help from other people until one day that help became all too necessary. The summer of 2022 at Westfield State Drum Major Academy, the one and only Dr. Rob Hamilton taught me this lesson. We had just finished the day, like that the students are gone. We're just getting all of our belongings out of the building. And long story short, I came out to my car and found that I had a nasty flat tire. In the grand scheme of things, not the biggest deal, but I didn't have a spare that was functional. And to make it worse, I had to be at a gig later that night. So I had places to be. It's not like I could just wait for AAA and all that kind of stuff. There was a time frame here. And so I had this realization after most people had left. I was kind of on the slow boat getting out of there. And so I'm stuck there with, another Impact member or two, like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? This is so bad. AAA is not coming for 2.5 hours. Like, what is happening? The call kind of gets sent out to all the staff who are hanging out at the hangar, just having some chicken wings, having a beer or whatnot. Just like, this is great. Woohoo. DMA is over.
All of us saying, where the heck is Justy?
Yeah, exactly. And the call gets sent out. Is anybody going towards Worcester? Anybody, please. Fortunately enough, Dr. Rob was far too kind to step up and came back and picked me up, and off to my gig we went, made it with plenty of time. And it's something that, seriously, it was a gesture of kindness that I will never forget, Dr. Rob. I want to thank you on the record for that night. Truly was a life changer for me. Seriously.
It worked out that, as it happens, I could walk from my house to your gig if and it is the kind of thing that, there have been a couple of other moments where I've looked around and said, I'm driving toward Massachusetts from, as it works out, a couple of relatively far-flung places. It's not that far out of my way. It's a good thing to be able to do. I actually, in that moment, I actually kind of felt fortunate. Like, I'm somebody who has, in this moment, I don't have a schedule. I do have the opportunity. Let's make this work so that we can bring the blood pressure down a little bit.
Yeah. No, and I noticed that. That's why I say that night was a life changer for me. Seriously, like your just willingness to be like, all right, well, let me just do it. That seriously was life changing for me, and it's something I've tried to do ever since that night. So
I'm glancing at my notes here and noting that we started out talking about peer leadership as seen through a little bit of an academic kind of formal lens, and the other view of it that you described before we got recording here was how life experience influences your approach to peer leadership. I kind of feel like maybe we've been pivoting for the last few minutes toward that anyway, so might as well go for it. Are there life experiences that you've had that have changed your approach to peer leadership that you can point to?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say probably my greatest one would actually be what I've done for work the past couple summers. So I ended up getting a job through my good friend's family's company. It's called American Sport Floors, and we install hardwood gym floors on an industrial scale. So I spent time traveling all up and down the eastern coast, well, the northern eastern coast, I should say. So like up to Maine, New Hampshire. I think we might have done a job in Vermont or two as well, down to Rhode Island. Never made it down to Connecticut for the brand new floor that got installed in Gamble, which was very sad. I was hoping that we might have had a bid on that contract, but it did not come to fruition. So that was terribly unfortunate. But often we're working and huge, like sometimes upwards of $30 million job sites, where there's lots of moving parts and there's lots of people around. There's lots of expensive equipment. There's lots of expensive material, and we got to get this floor installed. So it's a very intense and high-paced kind of environment where you got to just keep going, and you can't mess up, or else there's hell to pay sometimes. So that just working at that job, and then of course the crew is fantastic. I love everybody at ASF, Johnny, Mamadi, PJ. There's too many to count, but yeah, just like kind of working with this cast of characters, kind of learning how to interact with people, especially very early in the morning when maybe everybody's a little grumpy and not so awake, is important. And then also like there were other job sites where I, only 2 months in, ended up kind of managing. Not in any sort of like super overbearing way. Like I, again, very limited experience, but I was just kind of a person the company could trust. So just making sure everybody was working and all that kind of stuff, getting thrown into it very early with some very interesting personalities who just, you just got to learn how to deal with them and learn how to lead them.
And I can imagine, technically these are all adults, but I can imagine that you were younger than a number of them.
Yes. I would say most of them. There's a couple like 19, 20-year-olds that we have working for us now, but especially not the summer we just went through, but the one before when I first started. Yeah, pretty much everybody that I was working with / eventually, managing in air quotes was considerably older than me.
I'm thinking of the work that I've done with my church choir, and church choir demographics tend to lean toward folks who are beyond middle age. And when I started, I was 35. My 2 predecessors in the job were also fairly young compared with the average age of the singers. It's always interesting to watch the dynamic at work when younger people are leading older people. In the high school and college band experience, it's the drum major who is a sophomore working with people who are juniors and seniors. And to begin with, they're looking and saying, okay, that's a younger person. And unless they know that person ahead of time and they know that there's a level of competency, however that was demonstrated or whatnot. And it's also very, very possible, bordering on extremely probable, that there are juniors and seniors who think they should have been drum major. That can be a challenge. A couple of the people who were in the church choir as I stepped into the role of choir director were people who had taught me Sunday school when I was a wee sprout. I forgot to ask early on when you talked about being team hands, but during which of your years at Hanover and then at UConn were you a drum major?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be a drum major at Hanover and UConn, both my junior and senior years at each of those places. So
in each case, at least one of those years, you are definitely dealing with people who are older than you. And in any of those years, you are dealing with people who are your age at the oldest, and they could well be looking at it and saying, I could have been that. I should have been that.
Yep. And I'm on the younger side of my age group as well, too. I have a July birthday, so that definitely plays into it as well.
I hear you. A number of people who are listening to this will automatically have picked up on and will be interested to hear about is the fact that you were a Massachusetts person attending the University of Connecticut. And famously, there's a little bit of a rivalry there.
Yeah, a little bit.
One of the observations I've been pleased to be able to make in the last at least decade or so, is that at the very least, with UMass and UConn being regional rivals, athletic rivals, and it's been intense. Not maybe Alabama, Auburn intense, but at least within the tiny little cauldron that is New England, UMass and UConn have sometimes not gotten on as well. The thing that's been kind of cool for me to watch is, at the very least, the UConn and UMass bands getting together and having some kind of more of a relationship, certainly than ever used to. And when I was in the UMass band in the 80s, when the two bands would get together, and we did joint things when one band went to the other's house, the things we did together were, strictly speaking, on the field, and there was always this kind of prickly politeness to it. My experience since then of band people very specifically getting together and saying, we're going to play nice in the sandbox. At least looking in from the outside, it looks as if, at least in the band world, UMass and UConn are getting on. And you were kind of in the middle of that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I really honestly think it's kind of over the past, like you said, the past decade, it's really been just kind of a perfect storm of personalities and interests and desires kind of all just coming together as they should, and it's kind of created this relationship. I mean, so obviously there's been people before me in the past decade that have begun this tradition of just coming together and supporting each other. But yeah, I guess really within the context of my time, this all starts with a friend of the Drum Major Academy, Sham Patel, who I met at Drum Major Academy, and is the reason that I even ended up at UConn in the first place. So I'm from Massachusetts, from Hanover, but I knew that I just wanted to get out of Massachusetts for college and kind of like experience something a little bit different. I have always, and I always will, love the UMMB. But I just wanted to get out and kind of, experience something different for myself, where there weren't, 25 other people in the band from my high school.
Fair enough.
Which is great in and of itself, but it was just a personal decision. Like I love all those people, but I just wanted to kind of do my own thing and see if I could hang, outside of the kind of Massachusetts bubble, if you will. But I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, and I didn't want to go too far. So it was kind of this weird list of requirements I was assembling for myself. And yeah, my first year as a student at Drum Major Academy, I ended up meeting Sham. We were on an outside mod rotation. I was just sitting in the shade, catching up on some of the work or whatever it was. And he came over and he had his cool UConn hat and polo on, and we just started talking, and I kind of told him where I was at in terms of the college search, and he's like, well, you really should check out UConn. Like, it sounds like it's kind of checking all your boxes. And I was like, oh, I mean, I know they're kind of good at basketball, but I've never really looked into it. So I ended up just going down for a tour, checking it out, and I fell in love instantly, and just worked really hard to get in there. Really threw myself into the UConn band, the UConn drumline specifically. Once my year, eligibility coming out of the program in order to be an impact kind of passed, and then also with COVID too. So that was a whole other thing. Like, so long and short of it, some time passes, a few years, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to apply for the impact team. This is, I've always wanted to do this since I was a student. And so I applied, was fortunate enough to be selected, and yeah, just that summer, just ended up on the impact team with a bunch of UMass drum majors and ad staff, and the bond just became stronger than ever since then. We just really hit it off at Drum Major Academy, and that ended up translating to later in the year when we ended up meeting. I believe it was in Connecticut that year. The UMass band came down and played with us, and we did an arrangement on the field, and yeah, it's a really just kind of wholesome and positive connection and support that we have for each other. And I feel really fortunate to have even played somewhat of a part in kind of fostering that relationship.
There will be people listening who will immediately think of the relationship that the UMass and University of Delaware bands built through the mid-90s and on into the present. Even though the football teams don't conspire to get them together anymore, they'll think of that sister band existence. It's really what it's become, as the kind of healthy relationship that doesn't always happen with rivalry schools bands. And here in the last few years has developed another healthy one, which quite honestly, people of my generation might not have imagined possible. And these relationships should and could be role models for a lot of organizations.
They really could. I think, honestly, this is a conversation I've had with many people over the years, like my parents, friends, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I think what we do is just it's such a niche activity, and it's just hard for other people to understand, like, yeah, we can come together and I can want to be better than your band and your band can want to be better than mine. But at the end of the day, it's about coming together and supporting each other. And really the ultimate competition is who gets up on their feet faster and cheers louder at the end of, the other band's closer. That's the real competition in my brain. Yes, it's important to have a desire to be great, but it's more important to desire for others to be great.
It's one of my challenges with the movie Drumline. At the end
of it,
oh
my God!
At the end of it, one drumline, one band. Because it's a Hollywood movie, somebody has to be the winner.
Yep.
It's entirely conceivable that after the movie ends, those two bands go to the concession stand and hang out.
Yeah, right.
But we don't get to see it, and that's a shame. But it doesn't serve the story, but it's still a shame.
It is. It is a shame. It really is.
And it's a topic we could go on about all day and into the evening. And, that's what return visits are for. But for the moment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You let me know. Let's get this one, though.
So let me head for the big finish with some questions that satisfy my curiosity about people on topics that don't always come up in the main topic of conversation, I suppose. And the first one of them always is, what's one of your favorite pieces of band music that you've played, either outdoors or indoors?
For outdoors, getting to conduct Firebird last year as a drum major was pretty awesome. I've been fortunate enough to play lots and lots and lots of different really cool selections, like marching band pieces and pep tunes and all that stuff. But getting to conduct Firebird was really awesome. And then indoors, concert setting, one of my favorite pieces of all time is called Symphonic Dances No. 3. It's maybe my favorite timpani part that I've ever played.
Is that Clifton Williams?
Yes, it is.
Ding, ding, ding. Now, my normal next question is there a band that you'd love to perform with that you haven't because you're not the right age or you're not in the right place or you don't live in the right time in history?
I know other guests of your podcast have given this answer. I am sadly one of those people that never made drum corps work, just whether it be like, during COVID, just kind of where I was at mentally or just like financially, it just never worked out for me. So I guess outside of doing some death metal, drum corps would have been pretty cool. But that's why I do what I do, just trying to stay involved with bands and leadership and just helping people so that hopefully they can get to drum corps and experience those activities that maybe I was not as fortunate to be able to experience.
All right. Maybe my favorite question. Have you got a favorite band story you want to tell?
Yes, I do. I definitely have a couple that maybe aren't as podcast appropriate, so we'll steer away from that direction. And
bonus DVD material.
That's right. Stay tuned. But yeah, so coming out of COVID, the 21-22 season, everybody was just kind of like in disarray, like coming back to it, like how do we do this band thing that we haven't done for over a year? And so there was kind of room for a lot of new traditions and things that kind of just popped up. So I was the bass drum section leader for the Yukon drum line at the time, and something that kind of came to be is using the Bluetooth feature on the Long Rangers or the Megavoxes and hooking your phone up and using it as a Met, right? But also using soundboards and like creating your own sounds and just like playing them. So it was like the first real official night of our preseason. Drumline had been off across the parking lot working on something. We're coming back, getting ready for like the final powwow before they send us all home at 8 o'clock or whatever it was. And one of the directors is on the mic up on the tower. The whole band is facing the tower, watching, listening, like as they should be. I don't remember who it was, but somebody kept the Long Ranger hooked up and cranked the volume and played a sound. So we do like the Hey Band thing at UConn. I know UMass does all that stuff to get people's attention. So we're all just like walking back in a big group, and somebody like shoulders the Megavox and just presses the button and goes, "Hey Band!" And when I tell you, the entire UConn marching band stopped listening to whoever was talking and turned around towards the parking lot where we were coming from. Like I literally mean all 300 people. It was bad. The directors had a few words for us after that, but as deservedly so. But yeah, I will just never forget that moment. It was just too wholesomely funny. Were we distracting them? Like, yes, should it have not occurred? Probably not, but like it was just too funny.
Did it destroy the band? No.
No, exactly.
Well, I am all these episodes into this project, and this peer leadership, come to think of this peer leadership topic and the school rivalry topic were items that I had not really dug into specifically. And with luck, this will get people thinking and reacting, and we can talk about all this again.
Yeah.
I am very appreciative of your willingness to get this ball rolling. This has been such a great time.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really important conversation to be had, both in terms of like the UMass UConn and just any other listeners who are, maybe there's like a long-standing band rivalry that they kind of deal with. It's like, you know what, let's just come together as a community and support each other and have fun. Like that's what this is about, right? So yeah, no, I sincerely appreciate your willingness to have me on and kind of as like a representative from the UConn side and also from kind of like this new age side. I feel honored to be able to speak for all the wonderful people that I've been able to work with over my time. So again, thank you. Always happy to do it.
Well, thanks again to you. And here comes another quick pause for breath, and then I'm back with a story and a call to action. Do stay with me, I implore you. Here comes the dogfight. In this week's dogfight, I've got a request, not from me originally or directly, but from, and it's good to be able to say this, friend of the podcast, Dr. Amy McLaughlin of Fitchburg State University. She's got an ask, and there are two good reasons to help her out with this. One tiny reason is that right from the starting line of this podcast effort, Amy has been nothing but supportive and helpful and go team and all that. Do go back to episode 9 and listen to the conversation we had if you haven't heard it, or even if you have, you'll enjoy it, I think. But the larger, better reason is this. The request represents, only everything this podcast was kind of set up for. Building community through band, helping each other out. Because, as I said in the teaser trailer for this whole project, if bands don't support each other, who the heck will? So, here's the scoop. Dateline, Fort Gay, West Virginia. Credit to the reporting and writing of Gilbert McClanahan at WCHS Channel 8, the ABC TV affiliate station in Charleston, West Virginia. At Tolsia High School in Wayne County, West Virginia, the band uniforms that were purchased 12 years ago are showing their age, so the band is working to raise money to buy new uniforms. Tolsia High School's band director, Nicholas Bragg, said, quote, "We have quite a few pairs of pants, for example, where the entire crotch is ripped out, held together with safety pins. That was the majesty of parade, marching with the saxophone, normal wear and tear, moving down the street. Mr. Bragg, I think my pants ripped," and the rest is history. Band students design new uniforms that actually feature the school's official colors, unlike the current ones, and now the band is working to raise the $12,000 they need to purchase them. Bragg says he worries about the current uniforms holding up and notes that the issue is morale. He remembers feeling like $1 million putting on his band uniform during his time at Marshall University. Bragg said, quote, "If the kids aren't excited to put on the uniform and perform, then they are not going to have their best performance. It's a sense of pride." The current expectation is that the current uniforms will last for probably just one more year. This past Wednesday, the Wayne County Schools donated $4,000 toward the new uniform purchase. A little bit more about all this. There's a GoFundMe page for this project, and on it, band director Nicholas Bragg has included a photo of his band in their existing uniforms and has written this. Howdy, I'm Mr. Bragg, and I serve as band director for Fort Gay Pre-K through 8 and Tolsia High School in southern West Virginia. We're a small group, and as such, finding funding for all our needs outside of what our school board is able to provide is a challenge. Through other donations, we've been able to add a new drumline and introduce color guard. The community has been rallying, and most of our needs are met. However, our need for new uniforms is dire, and we simply cannot raise the amount of money needed in a reasonable amount of time. Our school colors are royal blue and orange. You'll notice our current uniforms are mostly black with red and blue accents. These uniforms are also beginning to fall apart to the point that we will not be able to use them for much longer. We have new uniforms designed by Stanbury, quoted at $554.60 each, and I currently only have 17 in the high school band and roughly 13 in the middle school for this coming year, so starting with 20 new uniforms would give some room for growth without asking for too much. I prefer to teach the kids that hard work, dedication, and passion will get us to our goals. I believe the kids need to work for what they have to have a sense of pride and ownership, but the reality is there's not enough business in the area to support this large financial need. If you were ever in band, please consider giving to our small but growing program. In a vacuum, it's a worthy project, I think, but I would say that. I'm a bando. But here's a little added information for a bit of context. Amy McLaughlin's request is not exactly just random or out of the blue, something she just read on the internet and got excited about. A good friend of Amy's was a band director, a composer, and an arranger, and he passed away in 2021 after sudden kidney failure. One of his first jobs, back in the mid-1990s, was at a little underfunded school in West Virginia, and yeah, it was Tolsia High School. So this is a little bit personal on top of everything else. Links to that GoFundMe page are included in this episode's show notes, but to be doubly sure you've got access to that, I'll speak it here. It's www.gofundme.com/f/support-mr-braggs, B-R-A-G-G-S, -band-new-uniforms-needed. And now, apart from staying with me for the big finish after a brief break, you know what to do. Let's make this happen. In fact, what the heck? They need 20 uniforms? Let's get them 40. To wrap up this week, let's take the CODA. For the CODA this week, you may have seen this on your social media feed. It's getting lots of sharing and distribution and whatnot, because that's how social media works. It seemingly was written by someone named Elizabeth Spencer, whose online moniker apparently is Guilty Chocoholic Mama, because that also is how social media works. In any case, it's an impassioned plea, and in short, it is right up our alley, yours and mine, we who are the band folks. It's called A Friendly Seasonal PSA. Here it is. Dear high school football fans, another season of Friday Night Lights is upon us. We're all looking forward to seeing our kids play and perform. We know you're so excited to see the football team take the field. As marching band fans, we're excited to see our team take the field too. We're all here for the same reason, to cheer on our kids and support our schools and communities. We understand that you're probably not in the stadium to see the marching band. But when they're on the field for their halftime show, we ask that you kindly show respect for the band fans sitting next to you and let them listen. Music is an auditory experience. They're probably trying to hear their son or granddaughter or niece or friend play. Talking while that happens is like standing directly and intentionally in the line of vision of a football parent while their child is making a game-winning play. On the other hand, please do cheer for the band. Clap and yell when they take the field and between songs in their show and after a soloist finishes playing, and pretty much any time they do a formation that looks particularly tricky. These are the band's equivalent of touchdowns. Football players work incredibly hard. So do our band kids. They march and practice and play and learn drill and give up summer free time in 90-degree heat to get their game ready too. There's no marching band madness coverage to balance out football frenzy on the 11 o'clock news, And the local newspaper probably didn't give a rundown of their show and who's on their roster and what they're expecting from the season. The halftime show is their big moment. And all those formations the football team puts together on the field, the marching band has them too. But instead of trying to make them work with 11 team members at one time, the band has to do it with 50 or 100 or more players all at once. This sounds tricky because it is. At most high schools, members of the football team are lauded and applauded and respected and admired, which is great for them. But at a lot of those same schools, members of the marching band are made fun of. They do marching band anyway, because they love it and want to be part of something bigger than themselves. The halftime show is their chance, for a few minutes, to be encouraged and cheered on. And one more thing. If you see a marching band member after the game, tell them, "Great show tonight." Appreciatively, marching band fans everywhere. Amen. But to that I might add, in the band world, there are no second-string people. Everybody plays. Every play, every beat, every kid. Unless you're dealing with a high school band where membership is by audition. Everybody, from the flutist who's guaranteed going to get an all-state recommendation, to the trumpet player on loan from the middle school who's just barely getting that high note, they're all out there. There are no subs. Nobody gets benched. Band is a place for everyone. So yes, please, do let them have their moment. That's BandWagon for this week. Thanks as always for downloading and listening. BandWagon was written, researched, and produced by your humble host. Musical interludes were produced by Hammerton Media, from source material largely by John Philip Sousa. You can listen to more episodes at our website, heyband.podbean.com. Please give me feedback, let me know what you like or what you think might change. You can do that using our email address, heybandwagon@yahoo.com, or leave us a 90-second voice message by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon. Be aware that we do reserve the right to include your message on the podcast unless you say otherwise. Those contact links and links to our news items, conversation topics, and my interview guest, Justus Carney, can be found in our show notes. Please share the show on social media, and thank you for that. If you enjoy this podcast, get someone else to listen as well. Word of mouth is the best recruiting tool. And to keep up with us every week, subscribe to BandWagon on the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please rate and review. It really helps other people to find the show. For now, take care, stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll do this all again next week. I'm Rob Hammerton, and remember, tell your guidance counselor that AP classes or no, you need concert band on your schedule.